Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. You know, Billy, today we have some questions of people that, we've asked and people are like, yeah, I would really like to know the answers to those questions. So we have two big questions, actually three if you count yours. And we're going to have some answers to those questions today.
We're going to try, Renee. When you talk about forest and wildlife and taking care of them, there's a lot of different approaches to this, but we are going to try to address some things that some of you viewers have been asking about. We're going to start off with a video from Dr. Lance Vickers, and Dr. Vickers is a professor here in our department. He's not part of our extension team, but he is helping out our extension team by putting together this presentation. He's going to be talking about what is a forest management plan, and importantly, why you need one and their importance. And special cameos, I believe, to some of his students. He teaches our forest management, some of our forest management classes here in the UK Department of Forestry and Natural Resources for our undergraduate program. So I think he's going to highlight some of his students. So he helps teach them how to go about helping landowners manage their property. And then we have our always awesome Dr. Ellen Crocker, our forest health specialist. She's going to be talking about what is forest health, right? Yeah, and you'll find out that that's not quite as easy to answer as you might think. So,
different in everybody's mind. Different people have different viewpoints on what that is.
Oh, what they say, the eye of the beholder, right?
Exactly.
Yes. So, yeah, but Dr. Crocker will really give us some things that we can kind of anchor our thoughts on when it comes to evaluating the health of our woodlands and the importance of having healthy woodlands, and maybe some of the folks that can help you get to that point. And then I'm going to wrap us up today with a preview of the 2025 Kentucky Woodland Owner Short Course. This is a really unique opportunity for anybody interested in learning more about the forests and wildlife and water resources here in Kentucky, as well as all the organizations and agencies available to support those woodland stewards out there and management of their property. So really excited about today's show, but more excited to have you all with us, right? Because otherwise it'd just be Renee and I talking to each other, and that's not
We
good.
do that all the time.
Yeah, but no, thank you all for being with us. If you do have questions for our presenters, please use the chat function. And if you're a YouTube viewer or a podcast listener, thank you. But you can interact with us via email. You can hit us up at forestry.extension@uky.edu, and we will respond to you that way. But Renee, glad to be with you today and really excited about today's show.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and get started with Dr. Vickers' video.
All right, I'll get that rolling.
I'm Dr. Lance Vickers, and I'm an assistant professor of forest dynamics and management here at the University of Kentucky's Department of Forestry and Natural Resources. Today I'll be talking about what a forest management plan is and why you need one. I'm happy to have the help of Scarlett Vickers, who is a middle schooler here in Kentucky and happened to help me hopefully make some of this presentation a bit less boring as we were waiting on a doctor's appointment the other day. I'll also have some contributions from University of Kentucky Forestry seniors that we'll see in a bit. Does your forest have a plan? Odds are it does not. Only 11% of private forest owners in the US have a written plan. And less than 20% of forest landowners have ever even consulted a forester. In fact, most US forest land is owned by private entities, of which family forest landowners are the majority, especially here in the eastern US. And many family forest landowners own their forests for scenery, wildlife, recreation, legacy, and several other reasons. Oftentimes, timber or other means of productions are certainly not the primary objective. But the cost of not having a management plan can be pretty severe. A lack of intentional management, or worse still, poor management, can often take the form of limited resilience or resistance to forest health threats, a shift over time to unhealthy, poor quality, and less desirable species. And the photo here is a great example of a degraded stand with fire-scarred trees and trees with poor form. Regeneration failures after any harvesting activities, reductions in habitat and other ecosystem services are also common outcomes when a forest management plan is not in place. And finally, high grading, which is a cutting practice where the best trees, meaning the most valuable trees, are removed and only the worst that can't be sold are left. Sometimes you'll hear about selective cutting, and this usually is just another name, maybe perhaps a bit more fancy than high grading, because high grading, of course, has some stigma attached to it. So you may hear the term selective cutting tossed about. It's usually the same thing as a high grade. And in fact, most harvest in Kentucky as of 2008, according to work by Dr. Jeff Stringer, shows that high grading is 61% of the harvest that happen here in Kentucky. So odds are, if you're seeing a harvest as you're driving down the road, it might be a high grade. Some benefits to having a forest management plan is really that it's a document that guides your long-term decisions and helps you avoid costly mistakes. Just like map helps Dora navigate her way to the end of the episode, a forest management plan can help match your actions to your goals for your forest property, whether that goal be timber related, wildlife related, perhaps it's recreation or some other means. Another benefit is that having a forest management plan can make you eligible for cost share programs, which can really benefit you and help offset some of the costs for implementing needed forest management actions. The reality is that forests change over time, and a forest management plan helps ensure that change aligns with your goals. And just to demonstrate that change, take a look at this photo sequence, where that yellow circled stake there is the same stake in each one of these photos. And this series was taken over the course of around 100 years, where it started with a forest that was harvested and has regrown from young thickety stage to a nice mature forest. Really impressive how much change can happen over the course of 100 years in a forest. So if you're ready to start thinking about the forest management process, the first step is to consult with a forester. Forester will come out to your property, meet with you, walk the property with you if you're interested in doing that. And as they're sort of informally assessing the forest, they'll be talking with you to try to get an idea of what your goals and what your objectives are, what your interests are, so they can help evaluate what management options might be available to help you meet those needs. They'll draft a management plan and then provide an opportunity for you to give them feedback so that maybe they'll revise their first draft to better reflect your needs if one particular interest or another wasn't exactly met. Forester can help you implement that plan, and they'll help put in place a strategy to monitor, repeat steps, and adapt as needed to ensure that over the course of time, your forest is continuing to trend in a desired direction. Really, the forest management process in a nutshell has two basic steps. The first is to determine what the landowner objectives are. And then the forester is to provide workable plans to achieve those objectives, if possible. Not all management objectives are possible on every piece of property. Maybe you're interested in recreational sugar maple production for syrup, but you're on a dry site where sugar maple is probably not going to do well. Unfortunately, that might not be an option for you. It's the forester's role and responsibility to help landowners understand what options are feasible and which ones aren't. There are really 8 core components of a forest management plan, and I'm going to go through each one of those components step by step in the next series of images. The first component is to really get a good handle on what the landowner goals and objectives are. So as I mentioned earlier, the forester is going to come out to your property and start asking you a series of questions where they really want to understand what it is that you're hoping to get out of this forest, both now in the short term and in the long term. And it's your opportunity to explain what it is you're looking to get out of the forest. And actually, setting goals can be one of the hardest parts. Perhaps you might not have thought much about what you want out of the forest lately, or ever. So a good forester will be patient and help guide you through setting priorities over time. The forest management plan is going to have a series of maps and other images that will help describe the property. The forester is going to conduct an inventory, and that'll help give a sense of what the composition of the forest is, how many oaks versus maples, so on and so forth, what the structure of the forest is. Is it mostly a large mature forest or a young regenerating forest? The forester is going to provide alternatives to reach your goal. And oftentimes there's more than one way to reach that goal. Sometimes you have multiple goals and they can be sort of in competition. At times, doing nothing is best. Some goals require minimal intervention, maybe just monitoring. A management plan is going to help identify when inaction is appropriate. And it's important to keep in mind that intentional passive management is still forest management.
In one plan, I recommended waiting to do any harvest or intervention. The timber was pole diameter and growing quickly, and the most efficient way to take care of that stand was just to wait to do any harvest until the trees reached saw timber size.
So those are some good thoughts from McCaslin, who's one of our seniors here at the University of Kentucky. Other management goals may require active intervention. Things like oak regeneration or invasive species control or creating new habitat may require action. A good forest management plan is going to balance the amount of effort expended with the outcome that you get. It's going to be adaptive and realistic over time, and may include, harvesting, either overstory removal or thinning. Sometimes fire or even planting can be part of the forest management plan. Once we have an idea of what the alternatives are, it's time to get more specific and actually put activities in a timeline so that you can have a better sense of how the series of events is to play out.
Writing a management plan helped me realize how important timing is to managing a woodland. Without a management plan, getting things done in an opportune window would be very difficult. But with a plan, preparations can be made along the rotation of a woodland so that landowners don't have to do everything at once. Landowners who want to sustainably manage their timberland need to get those intentions written down in clear steps as soon as possible. Because when the time comes for a timber harvest or other activity, uncommunicated intentions often get pushed aside, and that's when things like high grading can take place. But a simple paragraph in a management plan helps prevent those mistakes and keep actions moving in a sustainable and profitable direction.
More good insights from McCaslin. After we have the timeline and activity schedule set, it's the forester's responsibility to help provide an estimate of what the financial situation will be over the course of the management plan. Every activity that's listed there in the timeline is going to have either a cost or a revenue associated with it. Sometimes management costs money. Sometimes management makes you money. And it's the balance of those over the course of the 20-year planning window in this example that you look at. And because those activities happen at different times and in different years, we have to account for things like inflation. So they're going to provide what the present value is, or the net present value is, which is sort of the accumulation of all management activities through time, whether they be something that costs money or something that makes you money, discounted to today's dollar, so that you get a sense, apples to apples, of what this management plan is going to cost you or make you. Another important part of a forest management plan is the protection measures, specifically BMPs. These BMPs, best management practices, are guidelines that help ensure that any forest management activities don't degrade water quality, and other important things that we want to protect out in the forest. And finally, there should be a good sense of what the desired future condition is in the management plan, and a strategy set up to monitor to make sure that over time your forest is moving towards that desired future condition, so that you can adapt in case things change. You know, as Dalton here in Roadhouse reminds us to expect the unexpected, having a monitoring adaptation plan in place beforehand allows us plenty of opportunity to adjust things if an unforeseen circumstance arises. Life happens. So in the next segment, I'm going to introduce some seniors in our UK forestry program who this semester are taking the Forestry 480, which is the Integrated Forest Resource and Management class here at UK. I teach this class, and it's informally known as Capstone. It's a senior level course, and as the name suggests, it's a key course in our Society of American Foresters accredited curriculum. Here, students demonstrate their ability to develop a forest management plan with specific multiple objectives and constraints, as well as explain the range of feasible alternatives and defend, both orally in front of an audience and in writing, their recommended management actions. And it's been a lot of fun teaching this course.
Hello, my name is Megan, and I am a senior forestry major at the University of Kentucky. To conclude my undergraduate program, my capstone course objective is to develop a 20-year management plan for tract of land in Kentucky. Trying to compose a full-fledged management plan is absolutely a challenge, especially if it's your first one, as in our case. I really found it hard to see all of the pieces coming together until we just kept chipping away and adding more elements. The more we worked and got familiar with our data, the more confident and connected to this plan that I felt. I think it's really important to remember that Rome was not built in a day, and neither is a good management plan.
I'm really confident that Megan's going to do great things as we move forward.
In my forest management class, writing a plan has taught me to think like a pro. When writing a forest management plan, it's going to vary by situation. You might have a landowner that's super open to recreation, while another just wants to harvest their timber, and that's perfectly okay. But being a professional forester, you have to be able to write a diverse amount of plans for a diverse amount of people, and a diverse amount of land types. On one end, you might have a young poplar stand that's going through stem exclusion. On the other hand, you might have a very older, aged, mature forest that's ready for stimulate life. And being able to write a management plan that tackles the diverse interests and needs of both properties, as well as factoring in what's realistically possible with the landowner, and by prioritizing their needs for their forest, that's going to make a lot of people and trees pretty happy.
Great thoughts there from Emmy. So some final thoughts here. Really one idea that's been guiding us in our Forestry 480 capstone course this semester is this quote where it says, "A goal without a plan is just a wish." And if you're ready for your property to move beyond wishes and into achievable goals, I would encourage you to reach out to a forester. They can help you achieve those goals. And the key tool in achieving that goal is going to be a forest management plan. A good plan will help bring clarity and confidence to forest stewardship. And I would encourage you to manage with intention. Both you and your forest and the future deserves it. So to get started, a good first step here in Kentucky is to contact a KDF service forester, or perhaps a SAF certified consulting forester. They'll help you explore cost share opportunities and get signed up for the Forest Stewardship Program, which is a great first step in developing a forest management plan. And more information is available at www.ky-fsp.org. Other resources beyond the Kentucky Division of Forestry is the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources here at University of Kentucky. We have an outstanding extension team that help bring science-based guidance to everyday landowners tackling practical problems. So I encourage you to reach out to them. Also, the Association of Consulting Foresters here in Kentucky, that's a great group of folks. Again, they can help provide really turnkey opportunities to both develop a management plan and get that plan implemented. The Society of American Foresters is an organization that is really the professional standard for forestry in the U.S. They have great resources. And another resource is the USDA NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, who again often provides opportunities for cost share to get actual forest management actions put in the ground at lower cost to landowners. So again, I'm Lance Vickers, an assistant professor of forest dynamics and management here at the University of Kentucky. I want to thank you for your attention today, and I hope you have a great rest of the week.
Well, that was really great. I really liked that he kind of went over and actually incorporating our students in there too was really something interesting that I really enjoyed. They had their celebration banquet last night, and they went through their classes, and it was just really neat to see that they were actually in that and can kind of, tell people what this is all about.
Yeah, really appreciate Dr. Vickers putting that together, as well as his work with our forestry students. It's exciting to see these students, Renee, when they first come in as freshmen, and they may not know a lot about the discipline. They think they like it, but to see them grow and mature over the years and build confidence and skills to really help our landowners out here in Kentucky and really across the United States. So, yeah, if you know of any youth that want to get in and make a difference in forestry, I would highly recommend our undergraduate program. It's a great opportunity. I went through it myself, and think a lot of it. But I did appreciate Dr. Vickers and the students. It was good. It was a really good presentation, and thank you, Dr. Vickers, for that. So again, it starts with a good plan. We don't want to just hope, right? Or wish, as he said.
Exactly.
We want to have a concrete kind of plan in place to move forward. And we'll talk a little bit more about those as we go forward throughout today and into the future. But yeah, it was a good presentation.
Definitely. So speaking of another good presentation, Dr. Crocker will be on to talk about forest health. That's the thing. I've asked Dr. Crocker to just do something that's what is forest health? Because I know everyone has different opinions of that.
And
Yeah.
it kind of connects up with what Dr. Vickers just did in terms of this is something that I teach an undergrad class in forest health. And we always started out with, here you signed up for this class called Forest Health. It's a required part of your forestry degree. What is forest health? What does that mean?
Well, you're going to let us know.
Yeah, and it's not as straightforward, I think, as some of them come in thinking it might be. But today, just like you got with Dr. Vickers' class, you get a little sneak peek into some of the things that we might talk with our undergrads about, as well as kind of how you, as woodland owners, might approach that. So, what is forest health? And when Renee asked me to talk about this, I think the term forest health is increasingly important and you're hearing it used a lot more. We know that having healthy forests are very important, whether it's because of economic reasons, wanting to have timber and support forest industries, wildlife, or hunting and recreation, tourism. There's a lot of different economic contributors to why healthy forests are important. There's ecological ones. So we want to have diversity, whether that's beautiful wildflowers like in this picture, or animals, or habitat that will support them. And healthy forests provide us a lot from an environmental perspective, from clean air and clean water to erosion prevention. They do a lot for us. And in the news, you might see more and more articles that kind of touch on forest health, whether it's new invasive insects like the spotted lanternfly that's moving in, or forest fires and the impact that they're having both in our woods, but also on us as people. And many different organizations list forest health as one of their key management goals. So, someone like the Forest Service, this is just taken from their materials online. The agency's top priority is to maintain and improve the health of our forests. And forest management focus is, really related to how do we maintain forest health. And a lot of times when people are talking about forest health, what they are thinking of are insects and pathogens. And that's because they impact tree health and timber value. But in reality, there are many different things that can impact the health of our forests. So, for sure, these could be things like pathogens and the diseases they cause, as well as insects, pests of trees. But this could also be things like invasive plants, another thing that can really throw a wrench in your management plan and the health of your woods. But this can also be things like non living factors, fires, extreme weather, pollution, and much more. And of course, we as owners and land managers have a huge role to play in forest health. We can certainly negatively impact the health of forests and woodlands and our stands through mismanagement or a lack of management when it's really needed. But we can also have a big positive impact. We can be driving positive health and changes in our woods as well. So let's just take one example of something that's really impacting forest health here in Kentucky, and that's the emerald ash borer. So, people think of this as a classic example of a forest health issue because it is directly impacting trees. It is killing trees. So the emerald ash borer is an invasive insect that when it comes in, and it's moving through Kentucky right now, but it's throughout a lot of the eastern US, it has killed millions of trees, millions of ash trees that otherwise would be valuable timber, that otherwise would be creating great habitat and supporting all sorts of different things in our woods. So the loss of these trees, this key species, and the organisms that depend on it will impact forests and their management for many years to come. And it's a really clear example of an invasive insect coming in and impacting the health of a stand. But not all forest health problems cause tree death or tree problems. So another example might be something like an invasive plant. So this picture is probably familiar to those of you here in Kentucky, especially in central and northern Kentucky. This is bush honeysuckle or amber honeysuckle, an invasive shrub that can really take over in the understory of our woods. It forms this dense thicket and you don't see a lot of growth of other species in there. You don't see wildflowers. You don't see small trees growing into bigger trees of the future, that kind of regeneration that is so important for our forest to thrive and be sustainable over time. Nope, you're just seeing bush honeysuckle on repeat. You're seeing this invasive plant that has totally taken over. Is it negatively impacting the trees that are there? There's been some work done that suggests yes, it is, but the biggest impact it's having is on other dynamics of that stand over time and how it's going to change. So, back to kind of thinking about forest health and what do we mean by forest health? Well, you can look up the definition of forest health in the Glossary of Common Forestry Terms by David Merker, and his definition is a generally observed, somewhat subjective condition whereby a forest is evaluated according to its age, growth, diversity, existence, or absence of injurious insects, diseases, exotic invasive pests, wildlife attributes, aesthetics, degree of resilience, etc., all of which are weighed against the land management goals. And that's a mouthful, but it's also a really great definition in that it encompasses a lot of different things and a lot of different things that you need to take into account. But it's pretty clear that it's not a simple thing, and it's not going to be simple to figure out what's healthy and what's not. So there's no single definition of what people mean when they talk about forest health or what is healthy. Surprisingly, different organizations have their own definitions. And on the one hand, you think, well, they should all have the same definition, but this makes sense because they're going to have different goals and different things that they're trying to do. So the fact that they have different definitions of what healthy means for them kind of adds up. These vary, and in general, you'll see two common perspectives on this. First, does it meet our needs? Is this forest, is this stand doing what we want it to be doing? And second, is it supporting things from an ecosystem perspective? Is it resilience to disturbances as they come up? Can it bounce back from those things? Is it sustainable? Can this continue on its own and thrive into the future? And is it diverse? Does it have a mix of different plants and animals and species that are being supported? These are common aspects of many definitions of forest health, and I think it's really important to think about the intersections between those two. Healthy forest is going to be one that meets both of those. And no matter how you define forest health, there are some challenges. So, one that comes up a lot is the difference between forest health and tree health. Just because you've got a dead tree in the forest, like this one here, doesn't necessarily mean you've got a major health problem. A healthy stand of trees will always have some dead and dying individuals. In our systems that are naturally regenerating, that's going to be a pretty normal occurrence. But the question is this within the norm? Is this kind of the usual, maybe a tree that's gotten to the upper end of its life expectancy and aged out? Or is this something that's unusual? Is this something that could impact the stand in the future? And should it be impacting your management as well? While it's normal, if you're managing for timber, that's not something you want to be seeing. So, how can you shift what you're doing to kind of line up with that and set yourself up for success down the road? Another thing that can kind of really change things is that in different systems, different definitions and approaches to thinking about forest health might work better. And so, this is certainly true if you compare different parts of the world and different types of forests. I've got a pine stand there and a more diverse mixed hardwood forest as well. They're going to look very different in terms of how we think about health. But even within a given area, is this a stand that has been there for a long time and is dominated by big trees? Or is this something newer? Maybe you've had a harvest or a disturbance there and you've got a lot of younger trees that are just starting out, or maybe it's something in between. In each one of those, there's going to be different considerations. What are the key things to be considering from a health perspective? And what could throw a wrench in terms of what you have planned? So, if you're a woodland owner watching, you're probably thinking, well, what about my woods? Are they healthy? What does this mean for me? And how do I know if my woods are healthy? What are some common problems? So, the first thing that I want to echo from our previous presenter is that it depends. It depends on what your management goals are, and then what's getting in the way of you achieving those things. It Depending on where you are, these might be totally different, but thinking about some of these, maybe your main driver is timber. You want to be growing large, healthy trees of valuable species. On the other hand, maybe you really want wildlife more than anything else, and you want to be attracting and creating good habitat for the species that you're seeking. Maybe you just want to get out and enjoy your woods, or maybe you want to have the legacy of a healthy and productive woodland that you can pass down to your children, your grandchildren, to make the world a better place for the future. Everyone is going to have slightly different things that they're working towards. And having that clear in your mind can help inform what healthy looks like to you and how you can get there. So, what are some characteristics of a healthy woodland in our area that I would be looking for? Well, things like healthy canopies and trees. Obviously, we want those trees to be growing well and thriving. We also want to be seeing regeneration potential. And because our forests are naturally regenerating, that's their ability to be producing more trees, seedlings that are growing into saplings that are growing into the big trees of the future. And that's going to be important for your stand to continue to thrive going forward. Vigorous native species and few invasive species that can cause problems. And then just in general, the appropriate mix of species and ages, good stand structure that's going to set you up for success down the road. The flip side of that would be things like lots of dead and unhealthy trees. This is a photo of the tree in the woods, and you can see that its canopy is really thin. It's lost a lot of leaves and branches, and it's really struggling. Some of that is normal, but if you're seeing a lot of that, that's a red flag that something might be going wrong. You also might have invasive plants that are totally dominating things, taking over, carpeting areas, growing in dense thickets that are excluding the valuable species you want to see. And I mean valuable from any perspective, whether it's timber value or value for diversity. So these invasive plants, as you can see in this picture, can really take over and mess that up. In addition, that and many other factors could limit regeneration potential. You're not going to be seeing that regeneration if you've got a lot of invasives that have totally taken over, but you might not see that for other reasons as well, whether it's deer browse or just the conditions in that stand that are going to favor some species and not others. And if that is in conflict with what you want, that could be a huge issue. And then, maybe as a result of that, you've got an undesirable mix of species or ages. Your stand structure is not going to set you up for success down the road, and some management would be important to get you back on the right path. So if we think about this picture right here, does this woodland look healthy? Do things look good there? Well, it's not a trick question. It doesn't look so great. So something like this, which is a stand that had a lot of ash trees when the emerald ash borer moved in, that invasive insect that's killing ash trees, you can see a really high percentage of the trees in that stand died. Not only is that a huge loss in terms of that resource, but my next question would be, what's going to happen next? Are there going to be valuable native species that can fill those gaps? And while it will be a loss, it can recover from? Or is that going to fill up with an invasive species that's going to take over and really set things back? Something like this is a huge health issue, both in the short term and in the long term. And is this woodland healthy? Well, this again is bush honeysuckle, that invasive plant that totally takes over. So with this, it depends, how abundant is this? Is this all over? Is this in a small patch that can be easily managed? Or is this something that's going to take many years and prioritizing of your management to really address? Because while you can't do everything all at once, some careful planning can enable you to determine, how should we tackle this problem? What's going to be feasible for me, both in terms of the resources that I have available, but also give me what I want to be seeing long term in my stand. And how about this? Is this woodland healthy? Well, we've got a dead tree, and that's something that could just happen and be something normal. My question would be, what else is going on there? Are you seeing a lot of this? What else is happening in that stand? Trees live a long time, but they don't live forever. So, trying to get at what's going on and is it a serious concern or just a minor blip in an otherwise really great situation? So if you're thinking, I'd really like to learn more about my woods and what's going on there, we have a new app called Healthy Woods that could be a useful tool to help you determine the health of your stand and what are some potential issues there. So the Healthy Woods app is designed for woodland owners, and it's designed to kind of be something you can take out to your woods with you and learn about potential issues. You could identify potential problems as well as who the best contact might be, a professional who can help you in your management. So if you download the Healthy Woods app, which is free for Android and iPhone, you can open it up and you'll see some different options. So you could make a new assessment where you're in your woods. You could learn about resources that you could reach out to. You can look at your past assessments. And what that assessment is it's a photo-based guide that asks you some questions, providing you images throughout of what you're seeing. You know, what type of stand do you have? What does it look like? What are the other species that are present? And just walks you through each step of that, asking you to respond to questions, to take pictures, and we've got educational information in there to guide you if you're not sure. Once you've done that, you can also access that information online. So imagine you're in your woods and you fill out your assessment there. Then you can get a report. So if you go on the website for Healthy Woods, you'll get a readout of what you found in your stand. What were some summaries of that? What are some considerations for future management based on that? Maybe you reported lots of invasive species. So thinking about how to control those, what species were there. And this is something you could download and share with a forester or professional to inform some next steps. It is in no way a substitute for having one of them out to your land to walk around with you and see what they're seeing, but hopefully a step in the right direction and a great way to connect you to some resources from the future. For the future. In addition, it's got a new feature to it that is a forest pest guide. So if you go in the app and check that out, you can see this Eastern Forest Pest Guide, and it walks through a lot of the different diseases and insects that you might encounter. Now, not all of these are going to be huge health problems. Some of them are things that are present in every woodland and maybe only an issue for stressed trees. Something like anthracnose here, that pops up every spring and is typically not a big deal, versus some other things that might be major issues like that emerald ash borer. So check out the Healthy Woods app, and hopefully that's a great first step for you in thinking about your management, what you'd like to be seeing, how does that compare with what you are seeing, and who are some people who could maybe help you along that journey. So with that, I'm going to wrap up, and hopefully you learned a little bit about forest health today, what it is, and what are some of the key considerations for woodland owners in our area.
Thank you, Ellen. I really appreciated that. That was wonderful. I loved that you kind of went through how many different things there could be for a healthy forest. Because a lot of people, some people may go, well, if I don't have any, bad insects, I'm good. But, some people are like, oh, but the invasives are taking over, so it just depends.
And it's so true, for one person, bush honeysuckle may be the worst issue. But then you travel a few hours away and you won't see a single bush honeysuckle. Instead, you're going to see a lot of autumn olive, or you might see privet, or you might see barberry. You might see something totally different. And that's frustrating. And not to mention the fact that we don't know what the next major issue is going to be. We've got some guesses about, insects and pathogens and invasive plants on the horizon. But when emerald ash borer arrived, I think a lot of people were really surprised by that and kind of taken without realizing what this was going to do. And so if there's anything that's true with forest health, it's that there's always going to be some new issue. But there's also a lot that we can be doing as managers, as landowners, to set our woods up for success.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, loved it. Thank you, Dr. Crocker. That was really, really good and very complimentary to Dr. Vickers' presentation. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, good stuff. Yeah, as always, I was going to say, while we may have a new thing coming down that's going to threaten our forest, I'm so thankful that you're our forest health specialist and you're keeping up with this stuff and working so closely with our partners across Kentucky and the region to keep us informed and aware. So thanks for all the work you and your lab do for forest health here in Kentucky.
Well, thank you, and thanks so much for having me on today.
It was a pleasure. Oh man, that was good stuff, Renee.
You know, the thing about it is too, something that we're going to be hosting fairly soon, the Woodland Owner Short Course. There is going to be you're going to touch on a lot of this information. Might not go totally in depth because we don't have long periods of time
Robert.
for one of those, but you're going to let us know a little bit about what the Woodland Owner Short Course is going to be about this year.
Hopefully you can see here that we have a big program lined up for you. And this is going to be running from June through August, which is an extended period. We're not meeting every day, but we will meet many times throughout that period. We have more than 10 different partner organizations that are part of the 2025 Kentucky Woodland Owner Short Course, and I'll introduce you to a few of those here in a moment. And we're going to be approaching this really in a split way. We're going to have some online sessions, actually 6 online sessions in advance of some field sessions. So we've got 2 optional field sessions for you, and you can choose to either do the online only or the online and a field session. So I want to kind of preview the program for you all, and I hope that you all, if you don't register yourself, you will let somebody else know who could benefit from this program. All right, so let's talk about those 6 online sessions briefly. They do have statewide applicability, and that's important because we have woodland owners all across Kentucky, and you may or may not be able to come to our field sessions, but everyone can come to the online session. So we're trying to make these with statewide applicability. You'll have a chance to interact live with our presenters. If you can watch those live, they're going to be in the evenings on Tuesdays and Thursdays in June, and we've tried to set that at a convenient time for everyone, regardless where you live in Kentucky. We will be recording those. So if for some reason there's 1 or 2 of the evenings you can't be with us live, we will have those recordings available for you so that you can catch up with us. And also I would say is just watch those before you join the field sessions. And honestly, this is a really unique opportunity to get a tremendous amount of information in a very, very short window, all at your convenience, right? You can do it from your home, you can do it from your phone, you can do it from the back porch, wherever you want. As long as you got an internet signal, you can join us as part of these online sessions. And I think you'll really get a lot out of it. So even if you cannot join us for the field sessions or either of the field sessions that I'll introduce here in a moment, please consider doing the online only option, because then you will still get a lot of great content and you can probably get a lot of your questions addressed that way. All right. So I want to kind of quickly introduce each of our webinars. This first one is going to be me. I'm going to start us off on why and how to manage our woodlands. And I'm going to be splitting that session on June 10th with Laurie Thomas. She is the one who does our weekly commentaries of Kentucky that we have many of on our website, that if you ever want to check those out, please do so. But she's going to be talking about the process of managing, the process of identifying trees, how you kind of go about that process. So it's a great opportunity to kind of learn or refresh your tree identification skills. And then on June 12th, we're going to be jumping over and we're going to have kind of a split session. We're going to have Mike Silliman, who is the current president of the Kentucky Association of Consulting Foresters. He's going to be talking about comprehensive woodland management. Though he is representing the whole group of Kentucky Association of Consulting Foresters and how you can connect with them. He's going to be splitting that session with Clay Turner. Clay oversees the forest stewardship program here in Kentucky, and he's going to be talking about how to go about woodland management in Kentucky, specifically working with the Kentucky Division of Forestry. And then the following week, we're going to have Dr. Amanda Gumbert. She's going to be talking about woodlands and water quality. I know many landowners really value the water features they have on their property, whether that be a stream or other feature. And Dr. Gumbert will be talking about how to how the intersection of woodlands and woodland management impacts water quality, and some of the things we can do to help ensure a higher water quality on our own woodlands and throughout the state. So looking forward to that one. And we're going to also have on June 19th, Mr. Jacob Stewart. Jacob oversees the private lands biologist here in Kentucky for the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, and he's going to be talking about wildlife management in Kentucky. Jacobs also happens to be the current president of the Kentucky Prescribed Fire Council, so I'm sure we'll hear a lot about prescribed fire as well from Jacob. He's going to also be talking about some of the other groups that are out there doing some work related to wildlife management in Kentucky. And then we're going to have Dr. Ellen Crocker on June 24th, and you're going to get an expanded segment on woodland health. This is a great opportunity to take a deep dive into some of the threats and challenges facing our woodlands, but more importantly, what we can do about it and how we can help our woodlands be healthier and more productive. So we'll look forward to having Dr. Crocker on June 24th. And then on June 26th, we're going to have Mr. John Schultz. John is the state forester for the Kentucky Natural Resources Conservation Service, and he's going to be talking about how his organization, NRCS, works to support woodland owners when it comes to being good stewards of their property and getting good conservation work on that. And John's going to be splitting that online session with some other groups. We're going to have representatives from the Kentucky Woodland Owners Association, from the UK Cooperative Extension County Agents, as well as the soil conservation districts out there. So those are just some of the other partners that are available to work with our landowners on a one-on-one basis. So you'll get a chance to hear from many of those organizations on June 26th. So that's going to conclude our 6 online sessions for the 2025 Kentucky Woodland Owner Short Course. And again, these will be live as well as recorded for future viewing. And all of these sessions are intended to set us up for those field sessions. So we have 2 field sessions for folks to choose from. And these are optional, right? You can come to and do just the online, or you can do the online and the field sessions. We do ask that if you are planning to join us for the field sessions, that you also watch those online recordings or join us live before you come to those. So those are going to be on Saturdays, and they're going to run basically 9:30 to 3:30, and we're going to pack them with a lot of great content. One of those is going to be a woodland owner farm tour. We've recently went out and scouted these tours that we're going to be looking at both of the locations, and we've got 2 amazing woodland owners that are going to be there as hosts for those events, and they're going to be talking to us about their management. But we're also going to be having representatives from the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, Kentucky Division of Forestry, NRCS, consultant foresters, and many others as presenters during those field sessions when we do that farm tour. And a new addition to our Woodland Owner Short Course this year is a thing we're calling the Woodland Owner Resource Extravaganza. And this is an opportunity for all of our attendees that come to the field sessions to have some really meaningful interactions with all the partners, organizations, and agencies that are available to support woodland owners. So instead of you having to track down all of the people who can work with you on your property, we're going to try to bring them into one room for you to interact with. So we're going to have a nice kind of coordinated event there that allows you to interact with those organizations and agencies that you need to help you be a good steward of your property. The first one of those is going to take place on July 19th at Whitley County Extension Office, and that's just less than a half a mile off of Interstate 75. So if you're down in that area of the state, we hope that you'll be able to join us and make the most of that great field day there. We're really looking forward to that one. And then the following month on August 16th, we're going to be up in Pendleton County, and we're going to be meeting at the Pendleton County Extension Office. Right there in the heart of Falmouth, Kentucky. So these extension offices are serving as hosts for these facilities or for these events, and a big thanks to both of those offices for opening up their offices for us to take advantage of and use those spaces. We'll let you know that there are $30 a registration fee if you want to come to the online session and the field session, and it's $45 if you want to bring someone with you. So we're trying to encourage. That doesn't have to be a husband and wife. That could be a mother and a daughter, or it could be a grandfather and a grandson, or whoever it is. We're trying to encourage those that are working on the property or who have a vested interest in the property to come. So take advantage of that couples registration discount, and that does include all the online sessions as well as 2 field session registrations to the same session. So we'll hope you'll take advantage of that. So please register. We've got a nice little website set up so you can register for that. And here's the URL for that. I can read that for our podcast listeners, and that is wosc.ca.uky.edu/2025 hyphen WOSC. So check us out there. Again, this runs June through August. We have these field sessions, again, featuring a woodland owner resource extravaganza as well as the farm tours. And those are going to take place in July 19th in Whitley County, August 16th in Pendleton County. You also have the option of doing online only. For $10, you can register and get access to all the online sessions, the live as well as the recordings of those. If you want to come to the online sessions as well as one of the field sessions, that's $30. And if you want to bring somebody with you, we try to make it a little bit cheaper at $45 to do that. So please join us, whether that's online or in the field sessions. You don't want to miss this opportunity. This is the largest woodland owner educational program that takes place annually in Kentucky, and it's a great opportunity to really make some meaningful connections that can help you take care of your property for the long haul. If you have any questions about the Kentucky Woodland Owner Short Course, please reach out to me, Billy Thomas, and you can hit me up via email at billy.thomas@uky.edu, or you can hit me on the phone at 859-257-9153. I look forward to seeing you online and in the woods. All right. Thank you, Renee, for a chance to promote the 2025 Kentucky Woodland Owner Short Course.
Yeah, that was awesome, Billy. I really appreciate you doing that because, people need this information. Woodland owners need this information. There's a ton of different things. As you can see, you went over all of that stuff. So there is so much that people may just not know. I'm always saying, you don't know what you don't know. And I think you will learn a lot about what you don't know in the Woodland Owner Short Course by
You
attending.
really will. And, please take advantage of this opportunity, folks. There's a lot of people that are putting a lot of effort into this programming for you all. And we hope you'll take full advantage of it. Also, let others know about it, right? You may know a woodland owner or somebody that has an interest in wildlife or forestry, and they may not be watching From the Woods today, and they may not be getting this messaging. So please share this message with others.
Yes.
And help us spread the word. We're trying to help everybody become good stewards of their property, and there's a lot of help out there, not only technical, but there's some financial assistance to help you along the way. So please help us help others take advantage of these opportunities.
Definitely. So that's all we have for today, but we had a loaded show packed with full of information, and we greatly appreciate you joining us because, a lot of the show ideas today were because you join us. So we greatly appreciate you doing that. Keep that up. At the end of each one of our sessions, there is a little survey. If you could answer those questions for us, we would greatly appreciate that. If you've already joined where you get notifications, you don't have to put your email in, but if you do, please let me know if you want the notifications 1 hour or 2 or 3 days before the show. Different people want them different ways. Billy, they did ask if we could put in the comment section how to register. There you go. Really appreciate you all joining us. And, you can go to FromTheWoodsToday.com and watch every show we've ever done. You'll be able to watch this one sometime
That's a
next week. No, it's over 240 episodes. So there's a lot going on. So we greatly appreciate you joining us each and every week, and we will see you all next week. Y'all take care.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Bye.
From the woods today. From the woods today.